Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to try to justify each clip's inclusion in this compilation. Hopefully this will give me some way to focus commentary for an extended time instead of watching it and then writing something and then coming back. So I present to you a Hand of Melania invasion that was brought about because somebody said that it wasn't very good in Twitch chat, and I was thinking about it, and I was like, no, it's not that bad. It's long. It's a katana. It's got a great move set, one-handed and two-handed. And if you can get people into some kind of hit stun, or if you can be plus in some way on hit stun, then you can try to go for the L2. You can combine a whole bunch of damage stacking talismans like the Rotten Sword insignia, which I am not doing here. I'm just opting for the Shard of Alexander, which I didn't realize was making me fat roll until I fat rolled, and then it almost killed me. But there are several instances, or at least one good instance, in this particular invasion where regen very visibly saves my life here. And I would like to point that out, that happens like a lot in pretty much, not every invasion, but like a lot of invasions. So I would highly recommend some form of regen, especially at meta, but at mid-level if you can get it. As high quality a regen your build can support, here I am using the Flask of Wondrous Physic tier, truly excellent and sublime. The thing I think I like most about the Hand of Melania is that it's slightly shorter Nagakiba, but it still has that really good running R2, which inflicts a good amount of hit stun. It is good for chasing people down, especially if you can time it, but even one-handed, the one-handed running R1 on the Hand of Melania is particularly nice because it covers a nice wide stretch. You can use it to catch in front of and to the side of you. It does not inflict very much poise damage, but it is a very long sweeping attack that I would recommend going for. 80 dex backstab with Hand of Melania doing 1100 damage on this person, probably wearing a Soar Seal of some kind, but we can't help them. Here I almost die again, but regen visibly saves me. I have just about had it with Rot Breath Man. I truly cannot stand it, and I am just ready to, like, mash at him, which worked. Because two-handed, you have to have a good chunk of poise to get through the two-handed moveset. Now, I was sampling some of the lesser-used katanas, and I came across the Dragon Scale Blade, which is something that I had not really used very much, except for in the closed network test. In the closed network test, it had a faith requirement. I thought it was going to be a faith weapon, but no, it ended up being dex, I guess. At 80 dex, it does great damage. Everything in the katana category does excellent damage at 80 dex that can accept an infusion that will scale with dex. The Meteoric Orb Blade I like for similar reasons, but it is not a dex weapon. It's more of like a strength inty thing. I don't know, it's hard to explain. The nice thing is that the buff adds 130 lightning damage or so. I'm pretty sure that's the number. And it lets your sword inflict frostbite, which is, you know, probably the best, if not one of the more common status effects in the game, and because it's really good, it does a chunk of burst, and it tanks your absorptions. Here I accidentally kill this phantom, which is very funny. The bad news is that the frostbite buildup is not particularly impressive. It takes many, many hits with the buffed blade. Sorry, 160 lightning damage and 80 frost for 45 seconds, which is not as impressive as Lightning Slash's length. Additionally, Lightning Slash gets to benefit by buffing already infused and scaling lightning weapons, giving you a kind of ridiculous chunk of lightning damage over your physical. Elemental damage is generally very good. Anything that's pure physical has to be like a specialized weapon that you can get a lot of scaling with, like 80 dex, the Guardian Sword Spear, or it has to be a lightning infusion. Keen gets very good scaling, except the damage you're going to be doing from lightning is just higher all around. I'm including this clip to show off how impressive the damage on the just like regular Uchigatana, the lightning unsheath could be on the R2. Really a lot of damage. You can basically two-shot anyone with that kind of damage. For that, we used Ritual Sword, so we're at full health, and we used Shard of Alexander for the extra 15%, and it does a very impressive amount of damage. I do indulge in some ranged options on this build, but I don't particularly care for like extended sniper duels, so I usually just try to get in there and rush someone down with my dex options. It's just how I prefer to play. It's not the most optimal thing to do, especially not against 3 people. But in these dueling scenarios where I get pulled into a boil prawn situation, and I'm not like very keen on it, I do like to at least kill them to try to discourage this sort of activity. This could easily be New Game Plus, but I feel like it was a dungeon they just never did, and I'll defend that with the fact that they're doing like 50 damage to skeletons with maybe 50 max health. I don't know. Weird stuff's going on. So I'm like, okay, the PvE is going to be basically useless here. And it's not entirely useless. Now I have to be wary of this fireball caster in the back. I'm just waiting. I have no, like, I have nowhere to go. There's no prerogative for me here. I know that if I can eventually concentrate on one of them and vortex them to death with the Serpent Bone Blade, which also is very lovely. It does extremely impressive damage at 70 dex, especially if people are willing to just stand in double slash. I mean, at most values of dex, you can get pretty impressive returns on double slash on the Serpent Bone Blade. And at plus 25, it does deliver. Here I am highlighting the Serpent Bone Blade again for the very same reasons. However, Serpent Bone Blade is not going to be outspamming like a large weapon. It will probably outspam, you know, claws and straight swords and spears and what have you. But against great swords, you do have to kind of leverage the R2s, the running R2s. And roll backstabs, I guess. Try to incorporate a little fishing into every build I do now, because it is a very useful thing to have just like a grab that does a big chunk of damage available to you at any time. Like, that's big stuff. And being able to do that with basically every build and any weapon is big. The funny thing is that I am using his build, but with a katana that just has less range. Our builds may as well operate identically, but I chose yellow damage, and he chose blue with anime laser. Most katanas want to just press L2 anyway. It doesn't really matter what it does. If it's Spinning Slash, Nagakiba, or Serpent Bone Blade, or Unsheathe Uchi, they're all basically the same. Get opponent into range, press L2, and hope for the best. This clip is to demonstrate that sometimes, in instances of relatively high latency, although actually the latency is pretty good, if you'll notice, the hits are registering pretty much on the strike. Anyway, in instances of higher latency or Bloodhound Step, or both, I just switch to a halberd. What else are you gonna do? I fiddle with these guys with the Uchi Katana for, like, the entire duration of this, and I just realized it's not working. This hillside isn't really, like, doing anything for the Uchi Katana. I can, like, do damage to them all day, but I can't finish anyone because I'm just getting pelted by one or the other. So there's really no, like, footsiest to be done here. I can do this all day, but, like, if I don't have a way to chase someone down and finish them off, there's really not going to be a conclusion to this invasion, other than I run out of Estus, and I just don't want to do that, so I decided to make the change. Sometimes if I'm more adamantly, like, concentrating on a weapon, I won't change and I'll just take the L, because I don't really care that much, and most of these people you're fighting are, like, children. If a particular gank or duo annoys me enough, and I remember that I have other weapons, 80 Dex Lightning Infusion is going to do just so much, basically no matter what weapon you have it on. Also, a lot of really good examples of aim punch in this particular clip on the one-handed halberd. Like, it's just going all over the place. It's still hitting them, so, like, I can't complain too much, but if it isn't just wild to look at, the aim punch doesn't really add anything to, like, the realism or style of the game. It just looks really janky and bad. And it fucks up your hitboxes most of the time. I wish I could say that I had sniffed out that block frame from the waggle, but I really just was trying to attack them. There was no further thought than I can hit them with a running R1, so I did. In some ways, I'm very happy that aggression is rewarded in Elden Ring, but being able to mindlessly aggress on most players doesn't feel super great. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.